how did Arsenal ruin their league campaign in the position that they were in? So there was many times in the season where Arsenal obviously had a bit of a challenge and a dip. So the most notable one was the Everton game when they were 1-0 down against Everton, a Sean Dyche debut for Everton, and they capitulated. Couldn't get past their defence. It was a blueprint of how to beat Arsenal, really. Stop the wide players, make Arsenal cross in the box. They don't have height. And then the game after that, obviously, was the defeat at the Emirates 3-1. At that point, Manchester City overtook us. I say us, I'm an Arsenal fan. And then you think, now Man City, 20 games in, it's 22 games in, now they've overtaken Arsenal, that should be done and dusted. They'll sail on and then they'll move on to win the league, which they eventually did, but that wasn't the reason. After that Man City game, Arsenal won 6 in a row, just in dramatic fashion and in also easy fashion. So the Arsenal versus Villa game at Villa Park, where Arsenal were 2-1 down at about 60 minutes, and then it got to 2-2, and in the 94th minute, Jorginho cracks it against the crossbar, smacks Martinez in the head, and goes in the net. And then obviously Martinelli goes through on goal after to win 4-2. These matches are what champions are made of, but you could also look at it and say very erratic, because you need to win the 1-0s, which they have done, Arsenal, but in the last, let's say, 15 games of the season, it's all been a bit manic. Then you look at the one after, a couple of weeks after, and it was Arsenal-Bournemouth. This one was even worse because although it shows you never give up attitude from Arsenal, 2-0 down at about 50 minutes, and they come back and win 3-2 in the last kick of the game. There was all that controversy about it was maybe 6 minutes added on or 7 minutes, and then it was the 98th minute they scored in. But that's just other fans just pissed off to the max that Arsenal got the 3 points again. So you think, if you can win that game 3-2, it's written in the stars for Arsenal, they should win the league from here. Because the games after that, they've just won 3-0, 4-1, and 4-1 again. The problem started. Now, I didn't watch the Liverpool match because I hate watching Arsenal away at Liverpool. As a fan, I know it's probably weak-headed, but I've just seen so many goals being shipped against Arsenal and just terrible times at Anfield in the last decade, especially. 2-0 up against Liverpool at Anfield. Just kill the game. Don't lose your heads. Granit Xhaka, been a terrific player this season, but he's lost his head in that game. Starting fights against Trent and Robertson. It just didn't help. I know it's been over-egged that, but he just made the players, the Klopp team, you don't want to make them angry. That's not what you want to do. You want to slow the game down. Just be casual, but on the ball. Don't travel forward too fast. Second half, we should have actually lost that game. Liverpool absolutely dominated Arsenal. But 2-2, you think, that could have really just put the nail in the coffin for Man City to win the league. They're not going to do it if Arsenal get the 3 points there. You think, away at Anfield, there's not a harder game in the season, apart from the City game, that we're going to get, really, away at Anfield. But 2-2, you take a point. You take a point at Anfield, then you move on. This one was the worst game of the season for Arsenal, if you ask me. This is worse than getting defeated by Man City and all the other games that they've lost, because West Ham are poor and not interested in the league. I think they were safe by them. I'd say they were already safe. But we just capitulated. Arsenal capitulated. 2-0 up at half time. Easy time. Odegaard on the volley to go 2-0 up. It was so easy. I mean, they were terrible that game in the first half, West Ham. Second half, you let another 2-goal lead slip. That's another 2 points dropped. 2 in a row now. That's when it gets hard. If you're letting 2-goal leads drop, and it's been the other way where we've been going down in games and then coming back. If you letting 2-goal leads slip, the momentum goes straight away, and then it's putting doubt in each lead now. Every game since, it's been like, well, if we go ahead, we're not going to keep the lead. Doesn't matter who it is, Liverpool or West Ham, and then the next one in a row, 3 draws in a row. Southampton 3-3. This one just finished the league. You can't lose. You can't lose points against bottom of the league. That was the second time in the season as well. 1-1 at St Mary's. I think Arsenal should have won that day, but this one, you can't say you should deserve to win if you concede 3 goals against Southampton, who are so poor. Such a weird team though, because you see that they just they did 4-4 against Liverpool, and then they drew against us twice. They drew 3-3 against Tottenham. Southampton ruining the league for us, and just I don't know how they went down, to be honest. But it's not about Southampton. Arsenal. The reason why that happened, I think, is because I know they weak-minded the year before when they bottled it. I'd say bottled it as well. Didn't get a top 4, but you think you're going to learn from that. The pressure was mounting when you lose leads against West Ham, especially, and it's not really. If no one mentioned it, if everyone just went, "Oh, talk about their own teams, don't talk about Arsenal," other fans, other pundits, the media talking about Arsenal, you're going to bottle the league. You're going to bottle the league. I think it was all the talk that done it for Arsenal. They couldn't handle being the focus of attention. Man City, no one cares about Man City. They won 2 leagues in a row. They win everything. They're not even looking at the league really. They're going for the Champions League. That's when we say Man City bottled the Champions League, not the league. It was all eyes on Arsenal. They went out to the League Cup at Brighton, went out to Man City in the FA Cup. Fair enough. It was the Europa League when it was like, I don't think Arteta actually said it, but it was go out the Europa League. Even I thought, okay, forget that competition. But when you do that, you think, okay, no games on a Thursday anymore. But all your eggs are in that Premier League basket. You're sitting there, 7-day break every week until the next game. Thinking about that game. Manchester City would have been looking at other games, FA Cup and the Champions League. So they're able to have kind of a mental break. I wouldn't call it a physical break because they have to play more games, but a mental break. It's taken their mind off it. It's just natural. If you've got something in between to think about, you're naturally just going to think about that, even if it's just for that day. But Arsenal really capitulated when I think even the Arsenal fans, we were like, we're not going to bottle it, but also we're not expecting to win the league. Blah, blah, blah. We were expecting to win the league. Arsenal, I'm an Arsenal fan. We were expecting to win the league. You can't say you're happy with second place. You can say you're happy with second place at the beginning of the season, or even up to Christmas. You go, okay, we'll finish second, because it's been 8th, and 5th the last 3 seasons. Really, the 2 wins against Chelsea and Newcastle. I watched the Newcastle game. Chelsea, we absolutely battered them, but everyone battered Chelsea. So move on from that. The Newcastle game they hit the post 2 times in the first 10 minutes, I think. They were absolutely dominating Arsenal. I don't know how it didn't go in. And even when we went 2-0 up, it was a deflected shot, own goal, and also Odegaard. So, I mean, yeah, good result. But the way that it should have been 2-1 straight after. Joe Willock was 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper. He just didn't get it right. That game fizzled out, and it was a 2-0 for Arsenal. It wasn't convincing, and even after that, so you got Brighton. We needed if you had any chance as a football fan, you go, all right, it's finished. But if it's your own club, you go, but what if Man City lose the next 3? What if they do? What if they do lose the next 3? We've got to be there to push them. Finishing on 84 points is an average season. We finished on 83 in 2008. We weren't the top of the league then. By this end, we were top of the league. We should have been getting to 90 points at least. If we'd have got 90 points, which is what I predicted, I thought we'd actually lose a game against Newcastle and drop some points elsewhere and get 90 points. If we'd have done that, we would have won the league. Manchester City finished on 89 points. It's crazy that we finished 5 points off. That is a bottle job from Arsenal. The 3-0 against Brighton, it is not worrying because we basically, Man City were going to win the league. If we won our games, they would have won their games. They would have pushed harder. They would have put a stronger team out. They knew that it was basically over. We lost to Brighton, and it finished the season in a very, very bad way because Brighton are going to be looking at Arsenal as, I'd say, rivals next season. I wouldn't think in terms of they're not going to go for the title, Brighton, but I don't think Arsenal will either. So I think Brighton will go up from I think they finished 7th or 6th to where Arsenal are probably going to drop down to, which is 3rd and 4th. It's going to be a tight one, and if you can't even compete in that game, 3-0 they lost. It was an absolute mauling, embarrassing, players crying. Well, I don't know if they were crying, but it looked like they were crying. Arteta lost his head. It was, and also putting all eyes on Saliba being out. It would have happened anyway. This capitulation. So you get to the Nottingham Forest game. That is where I was worried continually. The Brighton game really worried me, but Nottingham Forest, it just means that we know now, Arsenal, this group of players, very young, but they're not young as in not many match experience. They've had, Odegaard's been at Real Madrid at 16, Saka's been playing for 3 years, Martinelli, they're young players, but they have got it in the bank games. It doesn't mean, you can be young in age, but not in match maturity. They should know this. They're actually building traits as weak mentally towards the end of the season, fatigued, getting complacent. This kind of attributes you do not want, which Manchester City players don't have. It's built in the club there. You could say money, but it's also built in the ethos, consistency and professionalism. Pep will drop Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Haaland. He'll drop these players. We didn't do that. Trossard should have played over Jesus after the performances where he's not scored enough goals this season. He's not scored. I was expecting him to get to 20. He's not even done that in all competitions. He's had an injury. If you are come from Man City and you're meant to be a world-class striker, you do that. He's not good enough for me. He's not better than Aubameyang. He wasn't better. I think he was better than Lacazette, but Lacazette, he'd get you more goals. Lacazette would get you more goals if he was playing up front the same games as Jesus. Lacazette would score more, which is poor since we just let Lacazette go. Right, so it's not all about Jesus, but he's disappointed me. So is Zinchenko, to be honest. There's a reason why these Manchester City players have been let go, sold for less price than you'd expect. Pep obviously looked at Zinchenko and said, "You're not the captain, you're not a leader. Stop acting like one. When we win, calm down." He goes way overboard. Stop doing team huddles. That is a thing that is, it's not weird, but it's like, hold on, let Odegaard decide whether he wants to do a team huddle. It's actually never worked. Steven Gerrard in the don't let it slip moment, that's the kind of moment it was. It's like a meme. And we still drew 3-3 against Southampton, but that wasn't because of the huddle. Last day of the season, 5-0 against Wolves. I'm not even going to talk about that because I didn't even watch that game. I was actually doing something else, but I had the choice, do I want to watch it or not? And I just chose not to. I didn't even care. Actually, it hurt more that we won 5-0 because all we had to do was win the other two. 1 goal to nil or 2-1. We just chose to lose. You don't know. Manchester City drew against Brighton, nearly lost, and then they lost against Brentford. They finished on 89 points. This is what is still so strange that we just let it go. We went, okay, Man City guaranteed to win all their games. If you look where they were winning, it wasn't the games that I was worried about. I knew they beat Man City. I knew they beat Leeds. I thought maybe Everton away, but Everton have been terrible. That Sean Dyche effect has not worked, and it didn't work. It never works against Man City. The games that I thought they would drop points were Brighton, Brentford, and guess what? They did. They got 1 point out of 6. If we'd have just won those 2 games, got to 90 points, won the Nottingham Forest and the Brighton game, just beat them 6 points, just get it somehow, we would have been league champions. It doesn't work like that, I know. Man City probably would have got an extra couple of points and then won the league. But at least you get to 90 points, respectable tally. Most teams in the league, in league history, get to 90 points and win the league. If they didn't, other players, other fans of teams, the media would not be saying anything to do with bottling. They'd say, right, it was a 2-horse race and you just didn't get quite good enough. Like Liverpool, we cannot compare ourselves to Liverpool, those seasons where they finished 1 point behind. That's all I'm going to say. It's not looking good for next season, but football changes. They've got a summer to look over. They can look forward to Champions League football, and I expect us to get 80 points next season. Bit early to say this. I expect us to get 80 points, but we might not. So we don't want to be going backwards. I don't want to see another fifth place season next season.